Now, as the war with Iran enters its second month, Pope Leo has issued a blunt warning to world leaders. At Palm Sunday Mass in the Vatican, he said God rejects the prayers of those who wage war. The comment comes as leaders on all sides of the Iran war are invoking religion to justify their actions in the Middle East.
God rejects the prayers of those who wage war. The message of Pope Leo's Palm Sunday Mass was unusually forceful.
Brothers and sisters, this is our God, Jesus, King of Peace, who rejects war, who no one can use to justify war. He does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war, but rejects them, saying, "Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood."
Leaders on all sides of the Iran war have used religion to justify their actions, with some US officials invoking Christian language in support of military action.
May the Lord grant unyielding strength and refuge to our warriors, unbreakable protection to them and our homeland, and total victory over those who seek to harm them. And amen.
The Vatican has no military or economic leverage, but the pontiff's influence is often described by analysts as a form of soft power. Some commentators see the Pope's Palm Sunday homily as a forceful rejection to those invoking faith in the name of war, and his words of peace a powerful counterpoint to the political language surrounding the conflict.
We have journalist Seema Gupta joining us from Rome. Seema, the Vatican usually steers clear of such pointed language, especially against individuals. But when the Pope is specifically talking about people's prayers, who is he referencing?
Well, he didn't specifically give any names, but clearly he's talking to all those who are involved in this war. And while his words are somewhat unusual, they were very forceful and strong. And we do know that Pope Leo is very clear in terms of he's careful in the words that he uses, and essentially rejecting the claim that God is used to justify war. But it's not altogether new. If you look back at Pope Francis back in 2022, at the start of the war in Ukraine, he also talked about and spoke out against the distorted use of religion to justify war. And similar such statements were also made in the past by then Pope John Paul II, as well as Pope Benedict XVI. So this idea and this call for peace are very much stressed by various pontiffs and by Pope Leo as well this time round. And he has ramped up his criticism of the war in Iran, and he has repeatedly made calls for an immediate ceasefire.
Seema, I wonder whether this Pope's American identity matters in this context. You have arguably the most influential political leader in the world, U.S. President Donald Trump, and now one of the world's most important religious leaders also being American as a counterpoint.
Yes, I think it is very significant that you have the first ever North American Pope, a Pope from the U.S., because, of course, this can show or become a possible challenge for the U.S. administration when you have an American speaking up very strongly, representing 1.4 billion Catholics around the world and the Catholics in the United States as well. So it can be a challenge for them as they continue to pursue this war when he's speaking so clearly against it and calling for an immediate ceasefire. Just on Monday, he talked about how the military airstrikes are indiscriminate and should simply be banned.
And do you think this Pope will be more assertive on geopolitical matters, moving forward?
Well, he already has been quite careful in the use of words. He didn't specifically point at any leaders, but that is what popes do. He's a religious leader. We also saw Pope Francis making very strong statements. It will be interesting to see how he goes forward. But as I mentioned, he has been ramping up his criticism of the Iran war and being very clear on the Vatican stand on it, which is for peace and a ceasefire.
Are there any downsides of a more politically opinionated pope in Vatican?
Well, it depends on what kinds of issues that you're talking about. If he speaks out quite clearly, that sometimes can end up being a backlash on the Pope. And if you look at the characters of Pope Francis and the previous Pope, as well as Pope Leo is known to be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more careful on the words that he uses. He likes to observe first before he makes a statement. That's what people who have observed him in the past before he became pontiff have described him as being as such. So the fact that he's using such strong language, I think it's also important to talk about the context. It was a Palm Sunday service. This is the start of the Holy Week, an important, crucial week for Catholics and Christians around the world. And precisely in the context of that, it was important for him to express this message of peace. It can become problematic for him if indeed he pushes too strong, perhaps, on other issues. But for the moment, the message of peace is one that has been stressed by pontiffs in the past as well, and it's unlikely that we'll see Pope Leo not stressing that as well.
Seema Gupta, thank you very much for joining us.